Hello, good people. Welcome to the Small But Massive podcast. This is a short series of 6 podcasts capturing voices from the Sperrins. My guests were Anne McAllister, Ollie McGuigan, Hugh McKenna, Paddy Gray, Lawrence O'Kane and Damien Heron. All well-known people in the local community. These people were involved in music, dance, filmmaking, the arts and business. All things that Glasgow is doing now in the Corn Store Creative Hub. So check it out, good people. Thanks to the Department of Communities, Arts, Culture and Heritage Fund for supporting the making of this series. I'd like to welcome Michael and John Heron, founder, members and directors of Heron Bros. Thanks for taking time out, gentlemen, to come and see me today. And what I would say is, because it's two of you, it's I suppose a double whammy for me. And but if you feel like you want to, if someone's talking and telling a wee story and you remember a wee nugget from it, Michael or John, just throw it in, you know what I mean? But well, we'll start off at, I should have said too, this is a series called Voices from the Sperrins, where we're looking at business, culture, arts, community members, and just, I suppose, trying to give a bit of a tapestry to the local area, you know, what's happening, because people just see, I suppose, Heron Brothers and they just see vans coming and going and where you're at now and all with it. But I'm always interested in how, what it was like back in the days growing up and what it was like at the very, very start. So what we'll start off with is, I suppose, if you'd like to, one of you would like to tell how many of a family that you've had, who are they, and then we'll start off from, I suppose, school time. So if somebody wants to say who all's in the family and their names, just because people might know out there, do you know what I mean, John and Michael? So we'll look at this here for people listening in as if they may not know anything, and I suppose, about your whole family as such. So.
Right, Paddy. Well, there's 11 in our family. There are 8 boys and 3 girls, and I can name them, I suppose. Paddy was the oldest, and he's now gone.
Yeah.
Rosemary next, Stan, John, myself, Bridget, Charlie, Brian, Austin, Kathleen and Terence.
There you go. And it must have been a thing in them days. Everybody I get in from a certain era, they have really big families.
Well, big families were the norm, I think, in those days.
Was it the norm? Or was it,
well, big families and small houses. Now it's
was
big
it to
houses.
keep warm or what?
I don't know. Actually, when I talk about 11 hours, blame my father for that. he didn't see the film Cheaper by the Dozen.
But and you mentioned there, everybody's still there, but Paddy.
Yeah,
God rest him. And as I said, later on in the wee chat, we'll bring Paddy up into the whole thing. So your home house, which I didn't know this recently, was just down at the bottom of the Car Road. Is that right? For your family home house?
No. Family home house is two St. Patrick's Streets, where we all grew up on.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the only house I ever was in.
There you go.
It was extended actually while I was growing up because of the size of the family.
Needed more doors, but then you could get access to doors quicker than most, you know.
It was called, I think, Thompson's Place in his times.
There you go.
So, yeah.
And that's just down where your office is.
As you go on off the street there.
Yeah.
The house on off the street.
Or onto the yard, that house that's sitting there.
There you go.
That's where we all came from there.
There you go. And so school, growing up and back in the days, and we've been talking the 50s, at primary school.
40s.
In the 40s. There you are. And there's me thinking, how you look eternal youthful. So back in the 40s then, growing up, just for people listening to this, what was it like in a rural parish for you both?
Well, we both went to the local primary school, which is down where Eurospar is now. It was a 4-classroom school. And the teachers were Ma Bradley, fondly remembered always. Everybody who went through.
Very much.
Bernadette Reagan was my next teacher.
There you go.
And she's still here.
Yeah, brilliant.
It's very good. Mrs. McCork and James Gunn, he was the principal.
There you go. And would there be many in the school, John, at that time?
Well, it had about 30 plus in most classes, I think.
Yeah.
And the trouble with the school was, in some extent, that when you went into Master Gunn's room, it was the top room, or even on the other side, there was only a door in the gable. You had to go through a classroom to go to your classroom if you were in the fire classroom.
That's where you get all the knowledge from later years in figuring out we need to work this out. And so growing up in the parish and them days, would sport have been something that you'd have been interested in?
Well, you only worked or went and played Gaelic every evening you could if you weren't working too long.
Yeah.
That was a big thing.
And
there was nothing else, Paddy.
Aye. And like I suppose, like, and them days, looking back, who would have been like the business people then for you, when you were growing up looking at people?
Joe McBride was the main man, and he was a great man.
There you go. And that he was like a hardware store man. That's down with the credit union is.
That's where the credit union is at. That's right.
Yes, he mailed them when you're as well as the grocery business he had.
And then Morris Taylor came along and he started up business and did an awful lot of good for this parish.
There you go.
An awful lot.
And was that, so what we were seeing there, I suppose, in a way was, in your day, the first business type shakers that, you know, people that were actually running the business and what it was all about. And because Joe McBride's name came up a few times back in the day, and he seemed to be like an entrepreneurial man of himself. Or what kind of a personality had he when you were growing up?
He had not, you wouldn't call it a great personality at times. He could be rough enough, but he was a very decent man, and there's a lot of people in this parish owed him a lot of money when he died.
There you go.
And the debt died with Joe. He never pushed people for money. When we would be young, I remember going across with a basket for groceries and a book. I was a good while later before we realised what the book was for. We had no bloody money, and everything was put in the book. And it would be paid off whatever time we could get it paid. I was thinking my granny from Glenelly actually was a great woman for us. I'm convinced that she was the one that put Paddy and Rosemary through education. She paid for anything they needed. The Dessers didn't have any of that education.
Aye, well, you got educated on the road as such.
That's right.
And I suppose, like, and that sort of, what you're talking about there, John and Michael, that sort of Joe McBride, what he was doing, like for people in the tech, what people need to know out there, Yuns are very supportive over the years of people getting pinned. I know myself and different people, and you know, and that people will be coming and they'll pay in bits and pieces.
Well,
you know,
we're only carrying on to sort of what we saw.
That's a good ethos, and I noticed that growing up, you know. And I suppose when you go back to them times, and you were saying that. Two of your family get educated. It's something that seems to pop up. Like Lawrence,
very important.
Lawrence described his family.
Right.
There was only certain people that got educated, and but that's not to say that there's many entrepreneurs out there. They maybe had no education and they just made it work. You know what I mean too. So and that's important to know. Right. But was it like that in them days where people were sort of, I don't want to say handpicked to take the education role, or was that something that your structure and your family sort of went, Michael should be doing that, or John should be doing that, or how did it work back then? Or
I'm not really too sure on how that might have worked. I don't think they were handpicked. It just happened to be, I think, that Paddy and Rosemary were the two oldest. And any chance there was of educating anybody, after that there was more to be fed. They were sort of looked after for that end. And I think they always appreciated the fact that they got an education like that. Rosemary went on to become a teacher, and Paddy became a pharmacist.
That's right.
And I remember Paddy telling me about whenever he went to college and he came home and he hadn't a clue what he was thinking of doing. He was kicking a ball against Mary Pat's Gavel wall. And Father Collins came around the corner and asked him what he was going to do now. And he said, really, I'm not too sure. He said, you'd like to be a pharmacist? He says, Mr. Parkinson's thinking of retiring, and Kenny, he says, I don't think he's going to stay here. Parkinson's were the chemist shop up where Brian O'Kane now is an office, beside the meeting house.
He's seen a vision, and he was, I suppose, a priest that a lot of people come in here, and the older people and talk about certain things. They would talk about him having that sort of push for people to try and achieve within your own parish.
He had that, and he wanted to see the parish improve all the time. I mean, he built the intermediate school, the primary school, Marina school. Brilliant. Did all those things. And he was the main man for all that.
A great innovator of his time.
A great man that way, but he saw himself as king.
Yeah.
When Ballinascreen won in 1973, they won the county championship. Paddy was chairman of the club, and he told Paddy to go and get some cases of Guinness and a few bottles of whisky, and we'll have a bit of a party in the Gaelic Hall. Paddy reminded him, we didn't have a licence for the Gaelic Hall, and you couldn't really do that. He says, that'd be a shebeen. and so we couldn't really do it. And Father Collins looked at him, Paddy said, and says, and who's going to stop us?
So we're going to leave it to the public out there to think, did it happen or did it not? So, and we'll not tell them if it did or not.
I was too young, Paddy.
He was too young. He wasn't even chasing girls then, you know. I was looking up and all, your father, Jimmy, had the hardware store. Isn't that right?
And a wee paint shop.
Yes. And so back then, I suppose, can you remember what date that was sort of founded?
Well, my father was in business from early 1930s.
There you go.
He was in the old factory, as it was called then, where Sperrin Electronics are now.
There you go.
And
my mother and him lived upstairs
there. Yeah.
There you go.
And he bought.
And Paddy wasn't sure if he was born there or not. He wasn't. He thought he may have been born up in the middle of St Patrick's Day, but he wasn't sure. He said, never was sure.
And at a later date, he bought 2 St Patrick's Street.
There you go.
And that's where we.
And mentioning Mary Pat's there now, that's another venue or such building that you are now in as well. So going back then, like. You came through school, and as I say, looking back and looking into yourselves. So the founding members then, you got together. You were all pretty young, I would imagine, at the time. You know, what was the sort of age?
Well, you see, my father was he was a small builder, and he had a hardware store and timber store and all. And it was a wee bit of a continuation, Paddy. Really. Stan wasn't that fond of school.
And school wasn't that fond of Stan either.
I love hearing about people really successful who weren't fond of school. I know a boy like that.
Well, they were glad to see the end of Stan, and Stan was to see the end of them.
He went into work with my father and trained up as a joiner, become a good joiner. And then John, like myself, he went to after primary school, he went to the tech, came home and started bricklaying. And I did something similar. I went to the primary school and then on to the tech. It was, because my birthday was at the end of the year, I was quite young, leaving both of them.
There you go.
And worked at home, and I worked in the shopping yard initially. But my father wasn't in great health then, and he actually retired when he was 65 anyway.
There you go.
And he was dead by 68.
There you go. And how far did how far did then your father go back in this area then, as you were saying there?
Oh no, my father started the business.
And the town, did he always live in?
Born in Glengamna.
Yeah.
And he served his time to Johnny Robinson up in the cottage. He was in the Cottage Row at the time, and he became a joiner. Carpenters, I think they called them then.
Yeah.
But my father could do most things, yeah.
There you go.
He was a good tradesman.
And he had, I suppose, an all-round view of what it takes to start something from scratch and get all that's needed, get the pricing, put it all together, get all the products together, get the men to do the job and get it out to our side.
Oh, he employed a number of men.
Alec McCormick had been one of those.
Do you want to mention any of them people? Maybe people out there.
Whenever I did the extension, it sent me out to Alec to see if he'd come on and give him a hand to put on the roof. And I was going to go out. He said, oh no, he said, don't go till after 11 o'clock, Alec might be up out of bed. So he did come in around that time of the day most times. But Alec and himself put on the roof and they did a good job on it and all that. And Paul McCormick then worked for my father too. Paul from Straw, who became a contractor too.
There you go.
In his own right. And different people that got there worked with him. Pat McGuigan worked a wee while with him, I think, as well. And
Johnny McAllister.
Johnny McAllister. Regina's grandfather.
There you go.
Yes.
And was that was Regina's aunt's house up in Cahor, wasn't it? She was McAllister.
It was their grandfather's.
Was that man's name?
The man we're talking about, Johnny's.
There you go.
Just a wee labourer's cottage that they had.
That's brilliant.
And then Regina modernised the whole thing and built it, and they're still built.
There you go. And it must be, someday they'll just pop up with your house, John. and young Stan will go out and say, "Look, Uncle, I just thought I'd get a wee quick exit to you." And then I suppose after your father, then when you're getting together, I suppose it's important that people know that. When you go back to them days in rural Draperstown, as we chatted earlier on, there was not much, one road in and,
That's right,
one road out.
The bus came to Draperstown and turned.
So
that was the dead
What
end.
was the moment then, I suppose, like, I know that you, the different bars had different skills and were, I suppose, put into different roles, but your first initial, let's do this, did you just, it was, as you say, Michael, an extension of what you...
It's a bit of a continuation, as I say, Paddy.
Yeah.
My father had got 6 houses up in Campbelltown to build. That was the biggest contract he ever done.
There you go.
And he was finishing his time at that stage, and we were just working on that there. Then after that, he took a back seat, and I was checking up, the first contract we did was the wee bungalow over in Goals.
Forestry bungalow.
The forestry thing. And that time you had a price and submitted thing, and we had no idea how to do that. And I got in touch with Dermot McGuckin, who was an architect in Maherfeld. He produced a bill of quantities, priced it, and we tendered for it, got it, and built it.
Right.
So that was our first contract.
I'm sure because there's a lot of, we'll talk after, a lot of success from then to now, but I'm sure that first initial one, they must have felt, yes, we're on the map. You know what I mean?
That's right.
You could, not sticking the chest out, but here we're over the line here. But was there a lot of?
None of us were old. I was no more than 16 at that stage.
Wow.
And then the next major thing, we did a lot of wee extensions to wee schools. Wee schools that are not there now, of course.
Lesnamuck and Falkloon. Falkloon's now a house.
And Goals.
And Goals.
But we priced a Cullion School and an extension to it, and it was about £7,000 then. So that was I copied, or didn't copy, but used McGuckin's rates and altered them up to date sort of thing, and priced that.
Why invent the wheel when it's there?
It was hit and miss.
And if you look back at the rates we did, as I did later years, they were so up and down. A wee bit of luck now had to come through all of that. So that was a big contract after that.
Isn't that sort of, I suppose, for you both, Michael and John, that sort of learning, because like construction has changed so much, and even so you can look back then and look at things and you say, oh, this is the way they're doing it now, but that's fine. It was back then, and so. Things like local workers then, who were they then, or is there anybody you'd like to mention that was...
Well, I tendered for most of these things, and from that on, we also kept... we knew how we did on each contract, which was a wee bit unusual at that stage, because builders and even builders today just look at their bank balance. There's no relation at all to how you done.
It's not real, is it? No.
So we knew how we were doing, and I would price them. John or Stan would build them.
Brilliant.
And so he would tell you a bit more about the characters that they had.
So then, John, right? You were because I remember Ollie McQuiggan was on. He was saying you were a great man. Not Heron's van, and our thing you were doing a good, Christian indeed, was getting people to the dances and back in the day. And Michael didn't know about that. Just
we bought a Bedford van.
Yes.
Around that time, and it did a whole lot of things. It was the taxi to the chapel for the family. It was the bus to go to work on Monday morning, and it was the canteen when it came to eating, and it was the wagon for the weekend to go to dances.
It was a life and blood. It was a life and blood.
And as well as that, people used to tell me the only reason I ever got my place in the football team so handy was that I was the driver. I chauffeured all the teams from schoolboy to seniors.
There you go.
So I was always on the team then.
And I suppose back in them days you weren't called in for having separate seats and everything that's now happening.
It was as many as you could get in.
Aye. And so when you're them early days, I suppose, as brothers, you started off, and then all of a sudden, like Michael, you're employing people and you're doing all that as well, and looking at all that.
Pat and Andy McGuigan would have been two of the very first. And, you know, you're saying we employed them.
Yeah.
They came and taught us.
You.
I always think it was a disgrace that they were called labourers. Pat and Andy were not labourers.
Yeah.
They could do anything.
Yeah.
And they whooped you into place. If I was out late at night and not getting home too early, there'd be mornings they'd be standing in the yard waiting for me to come home. And I was into the house and just change and out. There you go. And when it come to about 11 o'clock, you'd be starting to feel tired. And they would just whoop you to make you work twice as hard for an hour. And about 3 o'clock in the evening, he would do the same thing again, so that you get through the day.
Yeah.
And it was because of them. Like they
and
were
what you're saying there, it's like what people should know in that there, John, is to you, just listening to you there, from the first man on the site to the last man on the site, they're all equal, and because your ethos in the company is about like that.
Well, that's the thing we always had, yes.
Yeah. Is that all right to say that?
But Pat and Andy were special. They were really special.
Yeah.
And a small example, there's a wee concrete thing goes on top of the gully top where the downpipe comes, on your house and all houses. And there's a wee concrete thing, and Pat asked me what's the cost. There were 3 and threepence. I checked it up at the time. 3 and threepence. He says, if you get Danny to a wee frame, he says, this Monday's night we would have a shovel full of concrete left over. A shovel full now. And he said, we could make one of them, save you 3 and threepence. Well, we never bought another anyway.
There you go.
They always had that. Nowadays, I know there's lorry loads of concrete dumped at night. It should never have been ordered in the first place.
Well, I suppose the efficiency is not there, Joe, is it? Or it's just...
No, that's right. They were so efficient on everything they did. Everything they did.
And then that meant that they had pride in your work, your job.
And you dug a foundation, it was 2 feet wide. Well, they had a wee stick, and it was 2 feet. It never was, the trench never was 2 foot 1, nor it never was 1 foot 11. It was as near to 2 feet.
Yeah.
Give or take a quarter of an inch, because they dug it by spade and shovel. Nowadays, they put on a digger and whatever bloody bucket's on it, that'll do. And just fill it up with concrete.
And I suppose that people need to know about them too, that it was hard work, you know, for everybody. Like, you know, Michael, you keeping an eye on the budget of them jobs, because what you didn't say was, like, some notes in them, in today's money, there were huge contracts, you know, for
every contract was a huge
like
contract
even
at that stage.
the forestry bungalow, today's value would have been £25,000. I know it's, you know, I'd seen it on your website how it sort of just.
We built just around that time between sometime maybe after we done Cullion School, we built a wee bungalow for Cassie Wilson.
Oh, Cassie the teacher,
yeah, and found in that case we're dug out by. Pat and Andy by spade and shovel. And the bungalow cost just under £2,000 total.
That's mad.
We did Mickey Joe McGuigan's first out in Braga for £1,000.
That's mad. Like.
He wanted
it was an extension, really.
I think it was 1,070. He wanted to cut the price of it. And we didn't think we could cut the price of it. To finish up, we agreed to do it for 1,000.
Brilliant.
And if it was going to cost us more than that, he would try and give us a wee bit more, but we did it all right for 1,000.
Yeah,
he was very happy.
But I suppose back in them days, it was all about keeping the momentum going for yourselves.
Well, wages, you see, and everything else was accordingly, Paddy.
Yeah.
When we started, after we done Cullion, the next big job was Draperstown Primary, and. It was a big job for us. It was £28,000 at that stage.
There you go.
And we won the tender by £7.
Wow.
We actually lost the high school to Kennedy's by £21.
No way.
You know, so...
I went to Father Collins to see could we not get it, like, being local and employing local people. You weren't the lowest, so that's it.
No way. I thought you just didn't vote.
That was the system it was then. Lowest person got it, and which was fair enough.
Yeah. But then I suppose, in a way, you had to keep your business going, and maybe what you learned out of sticking by that there, you learned that, look, sometimes we just need to stay and not go there, because you could have been doing other jobs at the same time and they're only putting weight in them there, because over here, you just done it for the sake, as you say, Michael, just being the cheapest, and sometimes the cheapest isn't always the best.
No.
Do you know what I mean?
Well, the present system is completely different. It's so much in quality, and so it's not all price. There's so many other factors come into it now.
There's so many licenses and everything going on around it, and sustainability and everything that goes with it.
How much you contribute to the area and all this sort of thing. So a big lot of things. A lot of it's subjective.
When we started Draperstown School, we bought a lorry. £1,240, I think it was.
Is that the lorry you still have? The real old lorry?
An S Bedford. There was no body on it, was just cab and chassis.
Yeah.
And Stan himself built the body on it, along with a boy from Glenelly, Mickey McBride. And he gave us a hand at it. And that was it. And Frank Heron had been making blocks out in goals. And he had a wee mixer. And I asked him, would he come and drive the lorry part-time? We wouldn't have work for a man full-time at that stage. And I thought, making the blocks, he could leave that and come and do the other times. And he tackled me years after. He says, I wouldn't like to be working for you boys. What boys he called me. He says, full-time, he says, I have 107 hours up this week. He says, and if that's part-time, he says, I certainly wouldn't want to be working full-time.
That'll do a year stretch. So.
But we had great people like that.
Yeah.
Whatever the need was, they pulled
community.
With it. They came with it.
Community and
commitment, Paddy. Commitment.
And also too, I suppose I should bring up your mother. I'm sure when people need to know, when you've got young sons, you were only 16, Michael, and you've got they're running the business. And I know it came down from the likes of your father, but I believe that the mother in any family is like, they're the ones that sort of, when you're thinking, what will I do next? What are we at? Or when will it all unfold and all that? But I would imagine they're the person just driving it home and eat well and keep at it, and you're doing good, And do you want to say a wee bit about your mother and them days growing up?
My mother was a very mild person, Paddy, and she didn't give off to you. She would make suggestions to you.
Stan didn't take after her.
Now I had a lot of respect for my mother.
And what was your mother's name again? Sorry,
McConnell.
Yeah,
it was her mother, Mary Ann McConnell. It was her mother actually that I say. I always think that put up money for Paddy and Rosemary to be educated at that stage.
And so,
but she was there were a lot of Glenelly people come over for the fair day.
Yeah,
and they would all call by my mother and get their cup of tea and something to eat.
There you go.
It was a Cadian house, but it was also they might have waited there for a couple of hours when they're finished, and my mother had to sit and feed them all. And
there you go.
Never complained.
There you go. And
but she was a very, very efficient worker.
Yeah.
She had a garden, and would have it's pretty in it, and all vegetables in it. And Stan and myself was sent to weed the garden.
There you go.
And we'd eat the peas.
See, just see all them houses, the houses in the street up the back.
Yeah.
There was a time they all
houses had gardens. But the trouble with her place was her first garden was taken away for the operating box for the oil picture house down the yard.
Oh, yeah.
And then she was moved up to where the workshop extended into as well. Yeah. So she lost it, and then she was way up.
You were trying to move her up to the top of Corrig somewhere.
I think she got 3 moves.
And she was moved again. And she was never told she was moving. We just moved in and just dug it out. And that was it. She had to start again somewhere. I remember Pat McWigan saying, Mary Ann, you may do the next one. He says, the top of Sleepy Allen. He says, they'll never reach that depth.
But that's brilliant. And I suppose...
But there was darning socks and patching. Yeah. Jeans and patch and everything that just made it last as long as it could. And my father would have fixed shoes, although Michael Kelly was the main cobbler around our area.
Who was he then?
Michael Kelly just lived 2 doors up from us.
There you go.
Maura Kelly would be in school with Michael and myself and Sheila.
And that was just as you turned around the corner.
That's right. Johnny Mix was on the corner.
That's right.
And then Michael's was next to
There
that.
you go. That's the bookies now.
And he had
No,
just down below the bookies.
Down below the bookies.
The next one was Andy O'Neill's, and that's the bookies.
So then you stuck over there in 1965. You built Holy Trinity School in Cookstown.
Yes, that really was a big one.
So, because I was just looking on your website, today's value that would be like £11 million.
It'd be far more.
Far more. There
25.
You go. Well, whoever put that on your website needs to change that. Don't they? Drop it up a bit.
I'd have been guessing 15 to 20. He says more.
To put it in context,
Yeah.
we got the school initially, but while we were there a short time, they were going to do an extension, and so it took a little while to get that about. But the total contract, which was continuous, was about, in today's money, about 25 million.
Wow.
So we took the job, and a while, it was 63, was it? 63, the frost came on. And for 12 weeks, we never turned anything. We couldn't
do anything, no.
Well, at that stage, you were coming out of the ground and concrete, and it was all reinforced concrete structure.
And we weren't allowed to concrete. And I didn't want to pay anybody off.
That's because the frost at night, the rules said that.
And after the 7 or 8 weeks, the men came to me and said, look, we're going to go on the road because this can't go on. They were fed up, standing around, not doing nothing else.
No furlong men.
Waiting in the frosted thaw, John.
That's right. So they went on the dole and all promised me they'd come back once the frost would disappear. So that was a good luck.
Yeah.
But in that time, or around that time, with a bank manager, and he came down to Michael with a wee lean-to shop in the yard and a wee lean-to office. The office was all of about 60 square feet.
Oh, Jesus.
And the shop wasn't much more either.
You have a bit more room in the office than now.
A little bit, yes.
And told him that was it £28 overdrawn?
34, John.
£34.
The money man's here, John. John, the money man, right?
Overdrawn and write no more cheques and have the £34 in before close of business. Well, there was not a hope in hell of that happening. I came home from work and Michael asked me if I had any money. I said, £2 or £3 anyway. And went to Paddy, and Paddy had £1 and had to go to her mother. You were asking about her mother. Her mother gathered up whatever money she had in the house. We still didn't get the £34 with everything. No. But we got away with it. But I'll tell you, he was not a nice man. I always intend to leave that bank as soon as we would be fit to do it.
And did your dream come true?
No. They changed the bank manager, and the next bank manager that came couldn't do enough for us. He was a great help to us, and if we needed money, just tell him and we'll give you the overdraft. Now, you're paying the interest on it, all right? But
well, I suppose that's something people out there back then, being a business, you just can't appear with all this money. There has to be a negotiation, I'm sure, with all the banks, whoever's the contractors.
That's right.
And all. And would that have been your role?
Yeah, that fell to me. But it just on the Cookstown School, I'll give you a few other basic facts.
Yeah.
Because I think it's relevant if people think about those things.
Yeah.
The standard working week was 45 hours then. And in Cookstown School, throughout the whole time, we worked 51 and a half hours.
There you go.
It's a little less today for the standard week. The wages in 1960 were, if I can remember now, 4 and 10pence halfpenny.
What would that be like, like for people?
24p an hour. And
you worked for it.
That's for a tradesman, Paddy. A labourer was 3 and 10pence 3 farthings. Could you believe that? 3 farthings. The farthing was done away with in 1961.
There you go.
And there was 960 of them. And the pound.
There you go. That's mad.
So that's just a few relevant figures on that thing.
I suppose, and that's important for people out there listening to your good selves and your story, that wages, and people have this thing that wages were massive and construction, everything's massive, and it wasn't the case at the time.
No. Everything's relevant because the price was that, the finished price was such nothing and so forth. But tradesman, 24p, Liber 19p. That was 1960. It moved on from that, of course.
I know, but it's just something to think about for people. And back in them days, then in the early days, obviously you were contractors and all. You had a pit as well,
Yes.
for your businesses, and and you sort of started, I suppose, going into diversifying into different things as such. But having the pit there, I'm sure that would have been. Was that really good for your business, having that pit?
Well, we had that at the time we were in Cookstown School, which was...
Although that ran into a bad time, or a bad thing had happened, we were throwing stones up the Lough Fay Road, where all the sand and gravel was all coming down, so they were all on the upper side of the road. But John McDade was going up with a lorry load, and the road broke, and he fell into the field and went 5 times over.
No way.
And landed down at the river at the bottom.
Jeez.
And I went up to see, I was told that there was an accident, so I went up to see what it was, and that's what it was. And by the time I got down to John, it was a TK Bedford, and it had a big windscreen. It had disappeared in the first turnover.
First roll, aye.
And there was a jack in the cab, and it was flying around the cab. But it hit John in the head, it would have killed him.
Jeez.
But it hit him on the ankle, and I saw him, and he had the foot that way, and he had taken off the shoe. And I said, John, are you all right? I says, aye, but he says, my ankle's broken, I know that much. And he says, I took off the shoe. He says, I got them and John Burns, he says, about 3 or 4 weeks back, he says, and he says, they're a good pair of shoes. And I figured, he says, if I sat that way till they'd come out, that they would cut the shoe off me, and he says, I would lost the shoe. But we only worked in Northern Ireland in that time, now Herons are in Scotland, England, Wales, and the south.
But the founding ethos, that's come up again there in what you're saying there about, because that runs through, I think, Heron Brothers and your family, that sort of thinking about the people. And
it's a family sort of thing, Paddy.
Isn't it?
But it's the way we grew up, and the farm's only an extension of it.
Yeah,
really.
yeah.
And lucky enough, it's still going, I believe, that way.
Yeah.
We're a firm with no internal politics or no arguments or no things. We didn't have any arguments when it coming.
That's really good. That's really good. And
you get that more easily, I think, in bigger families. If there's only 2, then you're arguing for whatever.
There's no 3. You've got democracy, haven't you, Bob? You know, like no matter what you're saying. Like if I say this to people, 3, because there was a gentleman giving you one time and saying, "Oh, about committees and all." He says, "How many do you need?" I says, 3, and he says, "Why?" I says, "Because it'll only be 2-1, and that's it." And
Johnny Burke's ideal committee he always talked about was 3. One sick, the other not able to attend.
And the one that was AD.
Johnny was the last man, of course, on that committee.
But so you were saying there from the likes of Cookstown. Because your brother Brian, you went back earlier on, you spoke about an architect, isn't that right?
He was a quantity
surveyor. Quantity surveyor.
He was the first quantity surveyor came into the parish.
There you go.
And he was working in Belfast with a firm there, and he joined the firm in 1971, I think.
Yeah, and
we were 15 years on the go at that stage.
There you go. And he was so he's just an apprentice still to this day, and he's a lot still to learn. No, I know that. But so say someone like Brian there, because this is where I suppose your company, you're starting to. There's people coming in, and like earlier on, you would have to get that outsourced, obviously, and all of a sudden you bring it in house. And did that bring? Was it easier for you then, Michael, with someone that?
Yes.
And for you?
Certainly it was easy for me. Up to that, I was the one fighting to get the money off the site.
Yeah. And
I was dependent on a quantity surveyor, and the quantity surveyors were looking down on me. Yeah. But I had no qualifications of any sort. Brian was meeting them on a level.
Yeah.
So he could handle them better.
Yeah. But, because this sort of stigma thing was attached to that. And I suppose that's for people out there, I suppose, and there's people out there maybe starting a business now and they're going, what's the sort of the blocks? I know we're chatting to Lawrence Kane earlier on, and he was saying maybe into the same, it's kind of sometimes you just you stick to what you know you're good at, and sometimes you might pick stuff you might be just great at, but you don't stay around there long, and then you go on and keep building that momentum. I mean, and going from Cookstown school, in your days, was it, you were saying, John, earlier, all localised in Northern Ireland at that time, yeah? All the work. And so I just wanted to go back, you mentioned earlier on the cinema. And whose idea was the cinema, and why did you come about it, and why was it built in Draperstown?
Well, the first cinema actually was my father's store. He had a timber in it, he had a sand and gravel in it, and cement in it, and all sorts of things. And he was approached to see could he make a picture house out of it.
There you go.
And that's how the first picture house started. And then it changed hands a few times, and my father couldn't run the picture house. Father Collins was boss in this parish,
so there was
no way the morals were going to be in it.
So there was no bare arm showing.
There was no bare arm show, that's right. And then W.G. Shields and outside Mahara, he finished up, and he asked me would we build a new picture house and he would rent it off us.
There you go.
And we agreed to do that. Now, it didn't last long enough. Our mind was, I was thinking 20 years, you know.
Aye.
But it only lasted less than 10, I think.
Was it just off that time, do you think, then?
But it worked out. We made it into a shop anyway.
Aye.
And now it's into offices part of it.
Yeah, that's your hardware store.
That's a hardware store.
And
there's a thing about that cinema then too, Paddy, it's just in passing.
Yeah.
It was let out to the Indian community of Northern Ireland.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
They all congregated and watched an Indian film there every Sunday.
That's brilliant.
But it was really a meeting place and a get together. And
I've met a lot of Indians over the time.
There you go.
I imagine. We used to go to the pictures and everything.
There you go.
Yeah, Lord Rana, one of them. Yeah.
Hey, who'd you say there?
Lord Rana.
There you go.
Yeah, in Belfast. So, yep. It's just
it's very interesting there.
Point in passing.
No, it's good. It's very interesting, that point, because what I would pick up of that there is this country's all about, they throw this word cultures about, but it's about people. And there again, what was happening there is you had a culture of people that had moved in. I'm not sure what date that would all happen, but you were gathering them all together. They were networking. They were meeting each other. They could have been spread, I'd imagine, all over Northern Ireland.
They were
all over, from everywhere in Northern Ireland.
There you go.
That's right.
And fair play to be on the screen then, you know. I'm sure it was strange for everybody, you know.
We were even in the centre of the universe then.
We still are, Michael. We still are the centre of the universe. Everybody out there should know that.
Small but massive.
Small but massive is what we are. And that's how you started. Now you're at the massive end. So, and then...
But we're lucky to have people that we had. As I said, like you talked about Pat and Andy and Frank Heron. Charlie Conville. I have a tip of Charlie Conville. He didn't know it was mid. Paddy was the one that came around and took photographs of sites or did tips of things. But Charlie Conville were building an extension of Sperrin Metal, and Henry McPake was on the digger, and he was filling the lorry. And Charlie backed the lorry over beside Henry, and Henry started to fill it. Charlie couldn't sit in that lorry till the lorry would be filled, and that only took 5 or 6, 7 minutes altogether. Charlie was out over at the road spreading 4-inch stones with a navvy shovel. He couldn't sit waiting for the lorry to fill.
Well, the sound...
And he was a lorry driver, like that was Liberty he was doing that.
There you go.
But there was none of them, those things didn't bother people.
But your workers believed in your it was everyone together.
That's right.
Because, yes, there'll always be a name at the front of a big, now with all their scaffolding, but it's the people behind that front.
And we were very lucky. We were very lucky with people.
And we had some good people. And I think I can't go back. This occasion without mentioning some...
Mention away.
One person that really helped me, Anne McGuigan, become my secretary.
Just a few weeks back.
In June 62, after we had just started Cookstown School, and she was with me, spent the rest of her working life with me, and outstanding girl.
And I used to say, if anything ever happened to him, if somebody came along and shot him or somebody knocked him out,
abducted or aliens.
The only one that could run Heron Bros was Anne McGuigan.
There you go.
She knew everything about it. And she broke her arm one time, and within a week, she was back in the office writing with the other arm. Taught herself to write with the other arm.
Wow.
That's how good she was.
And she was specialty. And
she was really special.
Actually, on that story there, people come in and she'd be in the same office as I was in myself. And there were bill of quantities was a standard way of pricing a job there, where a surveyor took off effectively a bill of quantities, so they broke up everything into yards or meters or whatever it was, and you priced that and you totted it out and totted it up. You used to have to do that by head and your head because you hadn't got calculators.
Wow.
But she could calculate it with her right hand, which was her bad hand at that stage, and write the figures then.
Wow.
So she was calculating and writing.
Wow.
Two hands going together.
Wow.
You know.
She was some woman.
And I suppose, like, for people, you know, you hear about companies, but for companies like yourselves that have grown over the years and all, there always is them gems of people, isn't there? That are silent, but they're very dynamic in what you're doing, and they don't need a big title. They just get on with it, imagine.
And you know, the basic workers even, you know, the boys like Seamus McGuigan, Seamus Fadji, Ray Lemon, you'd have remembered Ray.
Yeah, Ray Lemon,
you know, those boys.
Mrs. Lemon lived in the corner of St. Patrick's Street. Right?
Bottom of the Cahor Road.
Cahor Road. There you go.
That's right. And Ray, now he got himself onto a few bits and scripts of things, all right. And I gave him money one time to clear out. I'm still waiting for him to come back with it, but unfortunately now he's gone too. But no, those boys, they would have died for you. They really would.
Yeah, and that's important. I think
there's a wee story about Ray.
Yeah.
We're working at Burns's first factory that Burns has built. Stan was foreman on it, and Ray was working for us there. And it was during the summer, and Pat Felix, he was out from university, and he was labouring with us at that stage too. And Father Collins came on the site, and he went down to see Pat, and says, I need somebody to start the school tomorrow morning. So he offered the job to Pat, because Pat was well able for it, but it was a temporary thing in the school. And Ray came up to Stan and says, I think I want to report some discrimination here. He says, that man came on the site and there was only two of us there, and he offered the job to the Catholic.
Ray was good crack now, but he was a great worker.
Yeah.
You know, and we had so many of those people.
Yeah.
That, and I say that thing about Charlie Conville, like, that's on tape. You'll never see another lorry driver, as long as you live and you're a lot younger than me, out spreading stones when he's getting the lorry filled within 5 minutes.
Yeah. It's committed.
He just couldn't sit.
Yeah.
There weren't people for sitting. They had to get out and work.
There you go.
And that was just it.
And you've got a couple of workers that, like Paddy Kelly there, it's been with you a long time. And I'm
lifetime.
Sure, lifetime. And Mickey
him and his mother came in looking for the job, and the mother did the talking.
There you go.
You know.
Jenna was mother. Hubert Murray and the mother arrived down with me, and I said, well, leave it with me. I'll fit him in somewhere. So I went up a couple of weeks later, and the mother was in the house. I said, job for Hubert. She says, you may go down and tell him, and he's down there putting on gate posts. He was putting on big 8-inch by 8-inch concrete gate posts. They would be 150 to 200 weight. And he was putting them on his own and hanging the gate to it on his own. It wasn't much wonder I gave him a job, I'll tell you. And he made a fair success as a building contractor himself since that.
There you go.
But we had so many of those, like Colin Doyle was one, again, great lad. Worked day and night to finish a job, and I would know he had a woman lined up for the opening of the nightclub that we were doing in Dublin at the time. And Colin went up to the room to get changed. And it was about 3 o'clock in the morning, somebody asked, where's Colin? And nobody had noticed him all night. Up to the room, there he was lying in the bed, sound asleep. He missed the woman, missed the whole night.
He worked too hard.
That was it, he worked so hard. That was just it. And we had those sort of people, like. And Peter Higgerty, Mickey Higgerty, both of them was again. And
Seamus that does the garage, isn't that what? Seamus O'Kane that does the garage. He's been there a long time too, hasn't he?
And his father before that.
Yes, that's right.
And now his sons.
There you go. And so his father then would have known yourselves, is that right?
He ran the sand pit, actually.
There you go. There you are.
And he always told me he could smell sand. And I believed him all right, because he managed to do things like that. He blended sand, and I never believed in the thing at all, but he told me he blended the sand for Redland tiles. Roof tiles are only about that thick. And if you had enough cement in it, it would break. But he blended the sand that just far less cement did it. Anybody else's sand that they took, they ended up putting far more cement in it, and they didn't all come through.
Another thing for you to learn.
He was just that sort of a boy. And that was himself and Seamus, and now the two lads as well. And
that's like, I suppose it's that.
Mickey McBride was another one came through our place too. Mickey's a very successful contractor.
Contractor, yeah.
And Charlie Higgerty has a kitchen manufacturing place.
Well, I suppose they're coming in. I suppose all these people that have started their own businesses have seen, I suppose, you guys come through the real rough and tough of it, let's say, and from the early days, and then the people, apprentices, going on starting their own business. What actually people should know about that is that's actually community growth in this area, because they're from here and then they're generating, and then that's keeping people here, and it's all. I feel that seems to be what your ethos is too. To keep this community strong and keep businesses going, and let people have a go at businesses.
Paddy, you're saying describes Draperstown on the parish on the screen, small but massive. There is far more employment accordingly in this area than in any other town. We're only a small town, but any other town in Northern Ireland.
That's amazing.
And people marvel at how productive and the number of businesses, and they all are doing well.
Yes.
Because they have this belief that they can do it.
Yeah.
And I don't know where that came out of. It wasn't there in the very early days.
Yeah.
But John mentioned Morris Taylor,
and John Burns.
Morris Taylor was the largest exporter of potatoes in Northern Ireland at a stage.
There you go.
John Burns employing maybe in 3 factories, maybe 400 people.
Wow, that was huge at the time. And
absolutely.
And I suppose for the likes of someone like John Burns and his family line in the area, like going back to them days, that's massive employment, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And it's livings for so many people.
It was the local people. I mean, now we have workers from Belfast. They travel up from Belfast, work here, go home instead of the other way around.
Yeah, it's amazing that.
But
we've got electricity points for cars now.
Well, we built a new garage and there's 6 electricity points.
Brilliant.
And there too for that's a coming thing. Yeah.
And that's I suppose for you guys, you're always sort of, I suppose, looking out for the next thing, that's happening, and I suppose it's something that.
Well, they would tell you renewables are the next thing, but you're never sure what's the next thing. It's whatever you do, you have to do it well.
Yeah, and it has to be professionally done and with manners and committed and time scales, all them things.
But you're
in
making
between.
it look rosy there, and a lot of things we did. It wasn't all rosy
No,
either.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah,
we made some serious mistakes,
yeah. Well, you see, I suppose
when Damien came in, he talked about us being a success. I said, Damien, when you have as many mistakes made as we made, you'll be a brave bit down the road.
But then I suppose when you're saying there about Damien coming in, going back to yourselves, and then your son Damien taking over the business, I suppose that would have been a big thing. Was it a big thing for yourselves? Because when you're in something that long, it's quite hard to hand it over. Because do you know what I mean by that? And because you started it, you with Oak, we're in the famous Oak County. You planted the seed, your father did, and you had great support from your mother, and you were trying jobs, and you were getting them all different places all around Northern Ireland, and then all of a sudden, you're at a level that you're thinking, this is the next stage. What people should know too, Damien is a son of yours, Michael.
Yes.
And so how did you just come about that phase or that time to go, we are, the 55 hours a week or 61 or 90, 100 hours a week that you're doing up to that point? Because people should know that to run a business as successfully as yourselves, to be a founder member of any business, you have to be there and you have to kind of learn what's running on it all. And
I used to tell architects, you can phone our office every day and you'll get somebody to answer the phone. It'll be a Heron. Austin will be in the office anyway.
There you go.
From 7 in the morning to 7 at night, at least.
Yeah. So you're all out the front all the time.
I always had it there.
Oh, well, us three started, as I said, but the other three joined when they could.
Yeah.
And different people, different skills, but they all give 100%.
Yeah.
And that's, if you have that, you don't have any problems with it.
Austin only get in to save us money. We're going to have to get somebody in to try and run the office, and Austin was in St. Colum's College. And we thought, well, it'll be as cheap a one as we can get. So we just took him out of education, put him into the office. And that was it. He had no say in the matter.
And I'm sure he was happy for that. You've got many sort of different strands now, and commercial and property and building and all that there. So would that have been your first introduction coming from here into buying like a space as such and
yes,
using it for whatever reason that you decided?
Yes. No, maybe. Now, the first property we bought, John, would be Fisher's Factory in 1974. And
but that was a bit by accident too. I had bought a wee place in Belfast, Stonyford Street in Belfast, East Belfast, and it was called Stonyford Bathroom Cabinets. And I went down and went to see the boy and bought it. And I said, we need some place to run it. He says, I'm moving out of here, so you can't get this. I don't own it. I said, a big place across the street there. What's that? Oh, he says, that's the UDA headquarters in East Belfast. So I said, well, we're not going there anyway. And I phoned Frank Heron to get himself and Charlie Convent to take the 2 lorries down. And I could get a couple of 3 men there on Saturday afternoon, or we were quite at that stage. Yeah. And we put everything we could on the 2 lorries and drove it home and left it sitting in Cookstown and didn't know on Monday morning what we were going to do with it, and tried then to buy Fisher's hat factory.
And was it a big factory?
It was a big old factory.
Yeah.
But the Minister of Commerce wouldn't sell it to us because they didn't own the right of way down to it. So John Devlin, who had been the head man in Fisher's, I went to see him, see how we solve this problem. Buy you the right of way, says, from old man Fisher. He'll sell it. So we bought the right of way from him, and finally then they sold it to us.
There you go.
It was cheap enough we thought it was cheap enough at the time anyway. And it meant we had a base then.
17,500, John.
Was it? It was cheap enough. I wish we could get one like it today anyway.
Do you think it was dear, Michael, or was it?
No, it wasn't dear, Pat.
No.
Oh,
no.
Well, and again,
but
we had that good luck. But then, 1st of January, I don't remember the year. I remember the 1st of January, I was living in Claudy, and the phone rang about 1 o'clock to tell me that there was a bomb had gone off at our factory in Cookstown.
Jeez.
Oh my God. And we had tried to get into Marley with the bathroom cabinets. They wouldn't take from us because they weren't sure that we could supply them. And we actually end up, we made 3 container loads to have as a reserve. And they were all sitting in the factory over Christmas. The whole bloody thing went up. And that was it. And it meant 38 people lost their jobs.
Jeez.
We had boys free in Ireland at that time.
And what was your thinking back then? Because you obviously you're trying to run a business, and there's all these things going on.
I was thinking of 38 men.
I grew up walking by Heron Bros when I was younger, and I've seen how it's expanded out. And yet again, it's going back to the worker again.
That's right. Well, we had 38 people that I knew every one of them personally.
Yeah.
And the trouble, in those days, not only did I know the guy that was working for me, I knew his wife, and I knew a good lot of his family, and I knew if I had a problem. Certainly I knew if I had a problem, because he came to me with it. And but that was that. And exactly 1 year later, we got up and running again after about 6 months, and didn't get 38 of them back to work, but some of them back to work. Next year, 1st of January, 2 o'clock in the morning, policeman phoned me again, bombing Stonyford again. So I despaired. I said, look, we'll demolish the bloody place and forget about it. But no, Stan wanted to keep it going and sort of got it up and going again. Now it's pretty successful.
Well, that's good. It showed that.
We had a few other bad incidents about it after that, but there was no discrimination against us that way.
Yeah.
We had another case in Antrim where on a Saturday morning I got a phone call from the police to say that our compound and all the huts were all on fire. And I says, I'll go down now. I says, any chance of us saving anything? Oh, he says, not a hope. He says, not even be allowed near it. You have to stay away from it.
And what way was insurance then back then?
Well, it was no good, Paddy. Another example was, I think it's maybe a hunger strike time. On the
ladies.
We were working over in Derry, and we had a JCB. It was 18 months old. It was taken away and on the road up to the Craig burnt. But figures again. The digger, I believe, we bought the digger at £11,000. 18 months old. We finally settled for £9,000 of compensation, but we had to buy a new one. New one at that stage was 14 because of little extras added on and so forth, improvements. So,
but the digger we had was doing the job well.
That was £5,000 that was had a spend that we didn't need to spend. So most of these things were not money for you. They were money out of your pocket. And that's threatened jobs.
And that's just like here you were trying to make a living and create employment and leave an area looking better. And all of a sudden you're putting up with us, whatever and to be there. And you're thinking to yourself, probably when you come back home together or having your meetings, or thinking, like, we're doing a favour here. We're building a nice place here. We're building a leisure centre here. We're building something sweet for these. And I suppose it's that sort of, I suppose that's maybe, I'm not saying it's the difference, but maybe growing up in a city, there's this thing about, nothing ever happened in the rural areas. And but that's not the case. The rural areas drove themselves on and made things happen for themselves, even though things were happening around them. I suppose in them days, you're going into communities and sometimes I think in Northern Ireland, I don't know if you'd agree or disagree, that maybe small town blues can hit in and they get a bit, what are you doing coming on here to do this? Or, I suppose even like me up in the mountain, creating all these people land and it's all the infrastructure that goes with it, and they're thinking, it's getting, in your own sort of, I suppose, mindsets, in the sense that if people are out there and it's from that time, you're kind of nearly, because sometimes I talk to people about it and they just get on with things, and those that wanted to work were working. And those that, and things happened, and there was things happened that weren't great. But at the end of the day, I think, like anything, commerce and business and investment in areas is what drives areas up and what gets them wider, bigger, and healthier. I think, And I suppose being a business, you have to, and for people out there, you can't decide who you're going to do the jobs for.
No.
You can't decide where their background is. You can't decide what country they're from. You can't decide what religious background or beliefs they have. But what you can do is provide a professional service and a good job.
Yes.
When you're coming up, Paddy, you have to go where the work is, and you don't. If you're not of any size, it's very difficult to dictate where you can go or what you can do. You have to take what comes to you.
Yeah.
We'll be a wee bit better established now.
Oh, definitely.
And we have a bit more of a choice. But it's still, going back to the whole thing, it's still how people perform for you and how you treat them and how they treat you.
Yeah.
And we've been very lucky. Some of the things. interesting.
Well,
Most of them
a lot more good luck than bad luck.
most of them
things.
have all been long-term employees.
Yeah.
We have a guy retiring now as a director at Christmas, Eugene McNana from Glenalley.
There you go.
And just in his time, he came out as a placement to us and did his 1 year placement with us, went back, qualified as a quantity surveyor, and then we were looking for someone. He'd done an interview. He would tell you today even he didn't do the best interview, but we knew what he was. So he worked with us and then progressed on through, and he became a director and has been for a number of years now. And it was tiring to do gentleman farming, maybe.
There you go.
But just like him and so many others, we've had a lot of long-term employees.
Yeah.
There's a guy started with us, Mickey McEldowney, in Cookstown School.
There you go.
That's in 62.
There you go.
I think he made me in there to 63. And still with us.
There you go. And
and his son's with us. So we've a lot of that type of things.
And I suppose what you said there, Michael, about earlier on, and you were saying too, John, about that sort of you're trying to keep everybody in work, you're trying to grow, you're trying to be innovative, and you're trying to look ahead.
Yeah, well, it's quite changed now from what it was earlier years. I mean, we started off the Cookstown School and did we did Burns's, we did Sperrin Metal Factory, we did Yardmaster, and we did all the extensions to those, Desmond's as well. Drumridge, yeah. So we did a lot of those type of things. And there was one particular scheme that the IDB had where we built, I think, 4 factories, one in Derry and one in Kilkeel, one in West Belfast and one in Enniskillen.
There you go.
And there's a bit of a story to each one of those, but the one in Derry was for a guy called Philip O'Doherty. It was his first factory, and we were building and renting, and it was a scheme that the IDB were coming in with some of the money to reduce the rent, sort of thing.
So people could start up, Michael.
To start up.
Yeah.
So this is what we agreed with Philip. By the time it was built, his bank man, instead of looking at a bit of a business plan, maybe looked at the factory and gave him the money to buy the factory. This year, that same gentleman completed selling his business for $2 billion.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable.
He'd be making one of the richest men in Northern Ireland because of it.
Wow. And
I hope we give him a wee leg up, but he's the sort of guy that was going to do it anyway.
So what you're saying there is
he's a director in Derry City Football Club.
And so he sold his business now, and obviously billions of pounds, as you say, Michael. But
yes.
Going back then, I'm sure you have a lot of people that got there that you activated and sort of rose up.
Well, there's some people like that who would have made it anyway.
There you go.
I would hope that Philip, we give him a wee hand, but he would have made it anyway. There's no doubt in my mind of that. And at the minute, we're letting 200,000 square feet over in Campsie to his business. So
there you go. So it's that first connection. You believed in him at the start, and then he didn't leave you. That's a very strong link, that, isn't it, to have with people, and a positive thing.
Well, we'd be builders of choice for some of the bigger Almac there. Big pharmaceutical crowd.
Yeah.
We built European manufacturing headquarters down in Dock for them, and we would have done quite substantial businesses, buildings up in Craigavon. And
you've done a lot of leisure centres, I've seen too. That's something.
We done maybe 5 leisure centres there in Belfast.
Ulster Rugby.
We also had a leisure centre. We did one in Newton Ards. We also did Marfelt and Omagh. We're actually working on one in Omagh, or one in Scotland at the moment. But that's major work, because there's over 100 million of those contracts there in Belfast.
And you go back to that first sort of, as you say, John, your lorry, and now the infrastructure that you have now. but something I just wanted to bring up there too, Michael, was in the early days you were talking about business and this area, because I know that I think they're going to come in and talk to me. I don't know who's coming in from Workspace, and I know you were one of the founder members. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. Well, I was a member of the...
And I know that Heron Bros have always had someone planted. It's a bit like the mafia. Is it the mafia? They wouldn't plant me into these places here.
Well, I was a member of the Meola Community Workshop, which is a forerunner to Workspace.
YTP, Youth Training Programme.
Yeah, that's right. I'm only one of a number of people that was involved in Workspace.
Yeah.
But it's the only local enterprise centre that's in a small area, a small town. Any one of the rest of them in Northern Ireland and the council areas are in the main town.
Yeah, that's right. Right.
And you know yourself, it's one of the most successful here.
It's a very successful thing. Yeah. But I suppose why I was bringing it up, that's to do with the people too.
Absolutely.
Like yourself and all. And the exciting thing, I suppose, looking back at that, you had all these young business people like yourself, Brian McCain, all these people that were Master Seamus, God rest him, and people like that, that wanted something to happen in the town that was different. And I suppose in a way, the YTP was a great idea because you could learn upholstery, you could learn joinery, you could learn painting and decorating, you could learn a bit of brickying. And I suppose in a way, if you think now in the world we live in now, you can't get any of them people if you make a phone call because they're all flat out.
That's right. So there's a shortage of trade. We have serious problems with recruiting enough people for enough things. We have work in Scotland. We haven't enough people for.
So that's interesting there because you go back to the start and you're doing hundreds of hours yourselves and getting it over the line, and then now by good choice and all the things you've done, you're at a stage where it looks as if the construction trade, you just can't seem to get the people. And why do you think that is?
It's not only a construction trade, manufacturing trade is the same.
Yeah.
And whether it's engineering or woodworking or
and
whatever.
welders, there's a lot of welders been looked for. Yeah.
And there's a lot of, in years gone by, all the builders worked in Northern Ireland. It's completely changed now.
Yeah.
Most of the big builders have moved across the water.
Yeah.
They would take people from here across there because they're so much better. And you know what you're getting.
Because John can't leave in an old boat at 5 a.m. and take them all over, sort of thing.
But and that's part of the reason that you're short here.
Looking at now at Heron Bros, and you mentioned one of the directors leaving there. You always were a family firm, you know what I mean, as such, right? And you mentioned like the directors and all, but I just wanted to bring up here your brother Paddy, and being, as you said earlier on, a chemist in the area, an innovative thing to do, and took a lot of pictures of the area and the historical content of the area. So do you want to say anything about that and why? I know that's important now when you see pictures of the past, but seeing Ballinasgreen change over the years and to have them images, I think it's really important.
Well, Paddy actually would have been an advisor to us in his own way. We didn't see it maybe as he was an advisor, and I don't think he did either. But whenever we bought Shergan Place in Omagh, it was a kitchen manufacturing place, we'd have gone Paddy as an outside director, John Burns and Morris Taylor, and Pat Dugan. And
that was the man ran Sperrin Metal, is that right?
Yes, Pat Dugan.
And he became a very successful businessman.
That's right, went on then to Power Screen.
Yeah.
And I used to say, told him it never should have been called Power Screen, it's Power Sales. He took you in and he kicked the life out of you around the office. He signed in the bottom right-hand corner that you were going to buy a machine, and then he kicked you out.
There's all these books about him.
It Power Sales.
And that's what sort of, down Lagan's Corner, Michael Lagan, he went out to in Australia and he started his own company. I think it's Green Power or something, I'm not sure. And the big cutters and the big machines you get. So he worked for them guys at the start, and then he broke away on his own. He's a very successful guy too. And Lagan's at the corner.
Yes.
Yeah, Michael.
Well, Kieran
McCluskey's brother sold his firm in Canada for multi-millions, hundreds of millions.
Yeah, there you go.
And himself and Kieran both worked in Sperrin Metal.
It's Pascal, it's the business in
Pascal,
out in whole island as well. So very successful. But there's so many people like that now in Northern Ireland who didn't put their head up or didn't see the opportunities, and now they do. And this wee country could do so much
as well as that.
You know,
there was only one way to go, Paddy. You had to go up because you couldn't go down. You couldn't go from nothing to anything less.
Yeah, but like, and as I say, yourselves, and you were just talking there about Paddy and all, and founder, and see all the pictures that he would have been taken back in the past. Well, I know, John, you're getting them all.
They're all actually going on, yes.
And I know you've done a talk in the Historical Society.
A few times, yes.
And as I say, about them all. And I think that's really interesting because I know Ollie McQuiggan was on, he talked about having wee videos of his family and pictures and different things.
Ollie did that too, yeah. And as a hobby, but it also... It's really a history.
Ollie myself to see worked in the picture house as well.
Yeah, and it's a history, isn't it?
And I was getting 15 bob a week. I don't know what he got. And I gave 10 of it to my mother, and I had 5 left. That kept me all right.
You're all right. And so the likes of for Paddy then, I know the chemist and different things, and I know he liked his cars and different things, and because I remember years and years ago, Paddy was also a politician. Isn't that right? And because I remember going around the house with John Hume many years ago, isn't that right?
Well, he's the first nationalist chairman on Magherafelt District Council.
There you go. And
Paddy enjoyed life, mind you.
Aye.
And as you say, the cars, vintage cars, end up with...
Would he have been the party boy of your household? You know, would he like to, going out and, or were you all kind of... you didn't have a wild one as such. You don't mean wild, but would have been more. Did he travel a lot?
He travelled a lot.
And did he bring?
Paddy was outgoing.
That's what I mean.
Paddy travelled the world 3 or 4 times.
That's what I mean.
And he could have got lost in a phone box.
There you go. And so, just where we're at now, and for yourselves, and I know you are retired, but you're not really retired, are you? You still?
Yes.
Truly.
These boys here, I was the only survivor on the board there this last 10 years or so or more. But I moved off last year. We stint done 65 years or something like that.
Wow, that's a long time.
Working. But it's a young man's game, and we have a lot of capable
You have a lot of new directors and a lot of
new directors. And well deserved for them.
And and what do you do now with your retired? And there's the case of drinking the best coffee. And
I do nothing.
What kind of newspapers would you read? The Times, Michael. You'd read. What would you read?
When I was working, I used to buy at least 4 or 5 newspapers to see what contracts were all coming. Now I only buy 1 newspaper a day, and it nearly beats me to get it read. I do nothing up to dinner time, and then I quit. I used to do nothing up to tea time and quit, but now I'm quitting earlier. And I'm the busiest man I know doing nothing. I never met somebody doing nothing that was busier than me.
But I suppose...
But that's really about the truth of it.
But you like to keep busy, you know what I mean, and moving. I don't mean busy as in you have to worry about your business now, but you're active people.
Whenever
you're active, like.
Oh yes, we're active.
Whenever I got out of the business, the doctor made me pack it in. He said, I think there might be 2 heart attacks left in you, John. And what do you mean by that? Well, he said, if you don't die in the next one, he says, certainly will in the second. And I said, you're some doctor. That's the sort of an outlook you have. Well, he says, I've told you before, and you're not listening.
Yeah.
I says, you told me what? To stop working. I said, well, I will. And he says, you told me that 4 or 5 times ago. And I said, when do you want me to stop? Right now. She says, I'm going to see another patient. I'll be back in 10 minutes. You make up your mind. Are you stopped when I come back, or are you not stopped? So I come home that evening, told them, right, I'm out of here. And the big theory was then, who's going to take on John's job? Contracts manager. I never knew it was a contracts manager. I just got the bloody thing built. That was it.
Yeah.
And I said, I don't know who's going to do it, but give it to me for a week. And we had surveyors and engineers, all sorts of boys looking for it, well capable probably of doing it too. I came back and I said, right, the man's taking on my job as managing machine. A bricklayer, the only bricklayer ever I made a foreman out of. Because generally 4 men were joiners, because they worked a 16th of an inch, where a bricklayer worked a half a block and was near enough. But Manus took on the job anyway. And
he knew his stuff.
He knew his stuff. And one of the best decisions.
Yeah.
Him and putting Seamus Kane into the garage were two best decisions that I always think about ever I made in Heron's.
Yeah. And
Seamus was driving a lorry and I put him in to run the garage. He says, I know nothing about running the garage. I said, if you did, I wouldn't be putting you in it. I want you to make sure the boys that's in there is working. And working for me, not for them.
And that you've got a big garage now, and it's everything's developed. And
Seamus Kane designed that.
Yeah. And I suppose that people looking now at your business, it's grown so much down the Core Road.
Yes. Most people don't know what we do, Paddy.
Aye.
You know.
Well, they might now know a wee bit.
Including some of our brothers.
There you go.
But it's what are we? Turnover maybe, turnover is 120 million this year. 400 employees, maybe wage bill 15 million. That's direct wages. And maybe a third of that more for labour-only people, at least that anyway. Next year, turnover will be 25% more.
There you go. So it's growing every...
It's growing, and we have our biggest order book in our history.
Wow.
At the moment. Wow. So things in that respect are quite good.
That's one of the problems in building. You're either going up or you're going down. You're not going level.
So all you need is the people to do that.
Yeah,
but,
and you seem to have that now. And I should say that, starting off, going back to the early days, and you built the way you build now. There's you've so many awards won for the equiness of your buildings, the life of them, and all that. These are all new things, and I suppose
any amount of awards now, Pat. Well, you need those if you're tendering for the next job and so forth. But one I'd be more proud of was the Business and the Community Award.
Yeah.
It was for the Employer of the Year, and we were the first Northern Ireland company that won platinum, which is the highest you can get in Northern Ireland. But also, we got it for the UK.
There you go.
And there's no building firm had done it before.
That's amazing. So congratulations. And that's a good thing to go at. Yet again, you're leading the way on what you need to do and what's the future and what's happening. Leading the way.
Apprentice of the Year last year. A lady.
There you go.
Annie Crozier.
There you are.
Apprentice engineer. So things out there are changing.
Because I can see there down and when you're building your new offices and different and the new shed, that there was a lot of females, a lot of diverse, on the sites
engineers
now. And that's a brilliant thing.
The site engineer was a lady. Yeah.
There you go. There you are, and that's something that. Is a brilliant thing, and I mean, and for yourselves to be, I suppose, at the forefront of that, then that's the next phase. And I suppose I know that you do a bit of alternative energy as well, but I suppose maybe down the line I'll get Emma down to chat about that and what that's all about for you guys now.
Well, we did wind turbines, and we did a sale there a couple of years back for 51 of them. Single turbines in Northern Ireland, which is the largest sale up to then and since then.
There you go.
Of that particular model. So we're in that type of thing as well. A lot of wee things.
Well, that's and probably there's wee things we'll not talk about. Well, the wee things we'll not be telling you about there. They're the good ones. Look at them smiling at them wee things we're not talking about. But
you only can do so much building, you see, and you only can do so much of this and that. The country's that small.
So you diversify.
So you diversify and you keep diversifying.
Because you have property, you have buildings, you have businesses, you have you're involved in a lot of construction all over the area.
Yeah, we'd be the largest industrial landlord in Northern Ireland.
There you go. So if I'm ever kicked out of the house, I'll find a wee room somewhere, John. You'll not come at me. You'll let me stay in
there. An old shed on some of the sites.
There'll be an old shed. I'll take it over. And so the likes here, I know you are left Heron Brothers now, but in the future, is it about diversity? Is it about looking at the opportunities out there that's around the world? Because it seems to be everything now is like energy so dear. You've seen it this year. The costs have just went up, and there's no warning, and people are controlling it. A bit like you said earlier on, John, about getting jobs and certain people controlling them.
That's right.
I think it's important that for companies like yourselves that are diversifying into that, it's a really good thing because because you don't want people controlling it that they can just, I don't want to say, turn the light bulb off on everybody straight away. So, Damien, Damien brought over the company or led up the company after yourselves stepped down and obviously added a new dynamic into it. But I suppose growing up around yourselves, you might have had a good insight into the company, or had you always thinking of Damien, or were you just...
No.
I objected to him. I didn't want him. And the reason I didn't want him, I says, if he's no bloody good, who's going to sack him? And I knew the finger was going to be pointing at me at that stage. And I didn't want to be sacking my nephew, but that's why I didn't want him in the first place. But I got voted out of it. And he came in, and it was a very good decision.
It was, actually, it wasn't simple as that. Damien was Chief Finance Officer at Coca-Cola, All Ireland, at that stage.
A massive company too.
Big company, yes. Good training for him.
Yeah.
But John had a heart attack or two, and Brian had one or two. And he says, he offered to me that if you don't watch, you're next in line, so if you want me back, I'll be prepared to come. So I says, leave that with me, and I put it to the boys at the board meeting, and they all said aye.
He's happy.
Well, you didn't say no, but you said other things about it, and so then went and appointed him, and he came in. And
strategically wise, your company went from Northern Ireland to everywhere.
Yes. Well, the timing as well as that there.
Yeah.
But yes, that was a big help.
Yeah.
But what has happened since is the number of good people have come and followed that.
Yeah.
And where we're going with it.
Yeah.
I have full confidence that
the people at the helm,
the company will be there long after we're gone, and it'll be still progressing.
Brilliant. Well, I think that's a perfect way to end it there, what you just said there, Michael. It was beautifully put. What I'll say is thank you very much for both coming on. And I hope it wasn't too strenuous, Onions. No. And it was really enjoyable. And
I hope we didn't go on too long.
No, you did not. And as I say, it's usually me goes on too long. And but there were some great stories in there. And we'll get you a listen back before it goes out. And as I say, it's brilliant in these podcasts to capture stories like yourselves and about where you began and a bit of the realness and then where you're at now. And I think what you just finished off with there, Michael, was just absolutely amazing. And for me, myself, to get my old pun mentioned at all, small but massive. And actually, look, I have the T-shirt on there, but I was going business casual today. Because I thought Michael would land in a real slick suit, because I remember at Mass, he looked like a Don when he came in there. And a good suit, and you too, John.
But I was at a funeral today, and that's why I had the suit on me.
No, you both look well.
I just didn't take it off.
So thank you very much. Give yourselves a wee round of applause. And thank you very much for coming. And safe journey home, John and Michael. Thank you. And thanks.
Thank you, and thank the technicians as well.
Thank you, Tierney. I always thank them. And thanks, Stella and Nathan and everybody else in the room. So give yourselves a round of applause in the room. Take out the buns there that you had earlier on from me and the boys. So thanks a million, man. Thank you.